All right, so we're diving into something pretty different this time. We're going to be looking at Studio Ghibli, those
Yeah.
amazing animated films, and we're going to be looking at ChatGPT.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so those are two pretty different things.
ADR.
But we're going to look at those two things together.
Okay.
So the questions that we're thinking about today are,
Okay.
is AI a threat to creativity, like human creativity, or can it be a tool?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Yeah. And also, what does it mean
Right.
when we compare
Yeah.
this very human art form
Yeah.
of Studio Ghibli
All
films
right.
to this very technical
Yeah.
AI of ChatGPT?
I think it's a fascinating comparison because you have, on the one hand, Studio Ghibli known for this like meticulous hand-drawn animation.
Yeah.
Every frame is like a work of art. You know, it's all human skill vision. And then you have ChatGPT, which is based on algorithms and these enormous data sets, like huge amounts of information. And it can create this like really surprisingly human-like content. So I think just putting those two side by side is going to make us kind of rethink what we think about creativity and how technology is changing it.
Exactly. And so let's start with Studio Ghibli. They were founded in 1985 by Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata.
Yeah.
And they kind of, right off the bat, became like a global phenomenon.
Hmm.
Their first movie was Castle in the Sky.
Yeah, great movie.
It came out in 1986, and it really kind of set the tone for everything that was to come. It was visually beautiful. The stories were very
Repellent.
compelling. They were deep and emotional.
And I think Castle in the Sky, when it came out, it was like a shift. I mean, think about animation back then. This was a movie that showed you could have an animated movie that was both like visually impressive, but also like deep and smart.
Right.
It could appeal to like a wider audience, not just kids. And it had these complex themes, and the characters were really well developed.
Right. And I think Hayao Miyazaki is really like a visionary. People call him the Walt Disney of Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Even before Ghibli, he was already making films like Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind.
I love that one.
That was 1984. And even in that film, you can see he loves expansive landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to write strong female characters.
Yeah.
And he has such incredible attention to detail. I mean, every frame of a Ghibli film just feels like a painting.
It's true. It's true. It's interesting. What about the style do you think is so unique?
Well, I think part of it is that they really strike this perfect balance
Yeah.
between realism and imagination.
Mm-hmm.
The characters, even when they're like fantastical creatures,
Yeah.
they still feel like real people with real emotions in their designs.
Mm-hmm.
They're not overly detailed. The lines are very simple and clean.
Yes.
And then the backgrounds are
Blush.
so rich and textured. You have these forests, you have these skies,
They really draw you in.
but they don't distract from the story.
Or the characters at all. Even like the way that clothing is drawn,
Oh, yeah.
it really reflects the personality of each character.
Absolutely.
But it's not overly complicated. So it just creates this world that's so believable.
Immersive.
Yeah, immersive. Even when it's a very fantastical setting, it's like you're right there.
Yeah, and that balance between what's familiar and what's fantastical really helps you as a viewer connect with the story.
Exactly. And, Miyazaki, he's really into hand-drawn animation. I was reading an interview and he was saying that he feels like there's something special
Yeah.
about having like the artist's hand involved, that
Yeah.
it gives the work a soul that you don't get with like purely digital methods.
Right, it has that like human touch.
Yeah. But, they haven't completely avoided technology.
Yeah.
For instance, in Princess Mononoke, which came out in 1997,
All right.
they used digital paint
Oh,
because they were on like a really tight deadline.
yeah.
But they used it in a way that didn't compromise.
The style. It's like a really smart blend of the traditional and the new.
Yeah, it was really thoughtful. They were just trying to like enhance the art, not
Yeah.
replace it.
And you can really see Ghibli's influence everywhere. Animators all around the world
Yeah,
have been inspired by their style.
absolutely.
Okay. So let's shift gears and talk about ChatGPT.
Okay.
It was developed by OpenAI, and it's really changing how we think about interacting with computers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So for those of us who don't really know how this works,
Right.
can you give us like a quick rundown?
Okay, so ChatGPT is built on this technology. It's called GPT,
Okay.
and that stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer.
Wow.
But you can think of it as a really, really advanced autocomplete,
Mhm.
like on steroids.
Okay.
And it's been trained on like almost all the text ever written.
Wow.
The pre-trained part is really important because it's been fed tons and tons of text. Books, articles, websites, all of it.
So it's like it's read the entire internet.
Kind of, yeah. It's learned the patterns of language and grammar and even different writing styles.
Wow.
And this massive data set is what gives it its power. The training happens in a few stages. First, you have this generative pre-training.
Okay.
And that's where the model learns the basics of language from all that data.
Yeah.
Then there's supervised fine-tuning,
Okay.
which is where it's trained on more specific tasks, and it uses examples that humans have labeled to make it better at understanding instructions.
Right. So it's like it learns the basics and then it gets more specific training.
Exactly. And then the third stage is called reinforcement learning with human feedback,
Okay.
or RLHF.
RLHF.
And this is where humans come in and they rank the different responses the model gives based on like how good they are, how helpful they are, how relevant they are.
Right.
And so it's like having all these really discerning art critics who are like fine-tuning the AI and making sure that its output like really connects with human sensibilities.
So it's almost like teaching a student.
Yes.
You give them an assignment and they give you a couple different answers and you're like, okay, this one is good.
Yes.
But this one isn't so good.
Exactly. And that feedback helps the AI learn what makes a good answer.
Oh, wow. So the ultimate goal of all this is so that ChatGPT can respond in a way that sounds
human
by predicting what word is most likely to come next based on what's already been said.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of talk about the implications of AI, like how it could be used.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
What are some of the things that people are talking about?
Well, one big topic is all this data.
Yeah.
Because ChatGPT learns from all this public data,
Right.
books, articles, websites,
Right.
which includes a lot of creative work. So there are questions about
Copyright.
copyright,
Right.
How does this impact the original creators and their rights?
Right.
It's like how a human artist learns by studying other people's work, but on a massive scale.
Right.
So we need to think about how these models are learning and what that means for the stuff they're trained on.
Exactly. And also there's the potential for AI to
Create misleading content.
yes, misleading or just inaccurate information.
Right, if it's not monitored and refined.
Because we want to make sure that what AI is putting out there is reliable
Absolutely.
and accurate, especially as this technology becomes more and more
integrated into our
a
life.
part of our lives.
Yeah, these are definitely ongoing conversations as AI gets more and more advanced.
Right. And so this brings us back to this connection that we started with. Like, what is the relationship between art and AI?
Right.
Is AI going to replace artists?
The big question.
Yeah, is this like a competition or could they work together?
I mean, there's a lot of different opinions about this.
Yeah.
Some people are worried that AI is going to make human artists obsolete. Like it's going to devalue human creativity.
Right.
And that's a real fear. I mean, a lot of people in creative fields are concerned about this.
Yeah.
Other people are more optimistic. They see AI as this tool
Right.
that can help artists
Yeah.
and maybe even free them up from doing these really tedious tasks.
Like when Ghibli used the digital paint.
Exactly. And you can imagine AI being used for something like that in animation.
Yeah.
To like automate the coloring process. So animators could focus more on the storytelling and the character.
Exactly. But this is what I think is so interesting.
Yeah.
If you compare ChatGPT to a Studio Ghibli film, AI can copy styles.
Yeah.
It can generate text. It can even help with visuals.
Right.
But it doesn't have that soul, like that emotional depth.
Right.
And that unique human perspective that makes a Studio Ghibli film so powerful. Like Miyazaki's films, they connect with people because they're infused with his experiences, his values,
Right.
his understanding of what it means to be human.
Right. It's his perspective.
And so I think the question is like, is art just about the technique or the final product?
Right.
Or is it about
the human element,
the human connection, the emotion,
the artist's vision?
the vision?
Yeah. Can an algorithm really replicate that?
Right.
This is the big question about what even is art.
Yeah.
Is it about how something looks, or is it about the intention behind it? The human emotion, the perspective of the creator?
Right.
I mean, AI can create things that are technically impressive.
Yeah.
But is it really art in the same way that a human creates art?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
It is a good question.
And there's no easy answer.
So I guess what we're seeing with Studio Ghibli and ChatGPT is that both of them,
Yeah.
in different ways, show the potential of human ingenuity
Yes.
and creativity.
Yeah. I mean, Studio Ghibli is like decades of this handcrafted artistry, and ChatGPT is the result of these like complex algorithms and just huge amounts of data.
Yeah.
But they both represent like big steps forward in their fields. And I think they force us to think about, the future of creativity and the role of technology.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, here's something to think about. How do you see this relationship between AI and art?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a competition?
Yeah.
Or do you think they can work together?
Uh-huh.
And as you think about that, think about Studio Ghibli films.
Yeah.
And that like spark of humanity and soul that you see in them.
Yeah.
Do you think that can survive in a world that's becoming more and more
driven by AI?
AI driven.
Yeah. Something to consider.
It is something to consider.
For sure.
Thank you for listening.